Okay, my dears, welcome to Mrs. Baker's Chemistry Corner. This is monster paper for Module 7 and 8, and it is question 5. Copper 2 sulfate solution was electrolyzed using the apparatus shown. So this is the same as question 4. We've got a carbon cathode and a carbon anode. So the anode and cathode are both inert. We've got copper 2 sulfate solution, and it shows us that at the anode we've got bubbles of gas coming off. A gas was formed at the anode. Identify this gas and give the test for this gas. Well, of course, in our electrolysis solution, we've got H plus and OH minus from the water, but we've also got SO4 2 minus, and we've got Cu2 plus. Of these two, which is the least reactive? Well, copper is the least reactive, so at the cathode we are going to get copper formed. And out of these two, remember, sulfate will never ever form, so we get oxygen. So there'll be oxygen formed at the anode. So the gas is oxygen. Now, the chemical test for oxygen is that it relights a glowing splint. So you basically set fire to a splint, the wooden sticks that you use to light the Bunsen burners, and then you blow it out. It still needs to be red hot at the end, so it needs to be glowing, but no flame. Then you stick it in the oxygen, and it will poof, it will spring back to life again, because the oxygen will allow for that burning to happen. The result of the test, well, we've already done it. So a glowing splint would relight. So probably the test is a glowing splint. During electrolysis, electricity passes through the copper 2 sulfate solution. Solid copper 2 sulfate does not conduct electricity. So explain both of the statements. This is very similar to the question that we had. I think it was question 1, where there's 3 marks available and you're basically comparing 2 substances. So the first one, you're comparing solid CuSO4, and we say has ions. We always need to talk about the ions that are stuck in a lattice formation. If you want to add as well, no movement of ions. Then to compare the second one, during electrolysis, the ions are free to move, so they can carry electricity. Done. The electrolysis was repeated using copper electrodes in place of carbon electrodes. The ionic half equation for the reactions of the 2 electrodes are shown. So at the anode, the copper metal becomes copper ions and gives out 2 electrons. And at the cathode, the same thing that happens with the inert electrodes, the copper ions gain 2 electrons each and turn into copper metal. Which species is reduced during electrolysis, and explain your answer. So in this case, we've got copper going from 0 to 2 plus. That's an increase in oxidation state, so it is oxidation. Here we've got copper 2 plus going to 0, which is a decrease and therefore reduction. So which species is reduced? At the cathode, Cu2 plus goes from at the cathode, Cu2 plus is reduced. Oh, what's going on with my pen today? Is reduced because it gains electrons. Now you can say it gains electrons. You could also get the mark if you say the oxidation state, not the charge. Remember, the oxidation state has decreased. From 2 plus to 0. Either one will get you the mark. You don't need to write both, but you can write either one. The masses of the copper electrodes change during the electrolysis. State how and explain why the masses of the two copper electrodes changed. Use the ionic half equations to help you. So you're always going to get marks for the ionic half equations if it tells you such. So state how and explain why the masses of two copper electrodes. So let's do the first copper electrode first. The copper anode, gives up 2 electrons, and the copper atoms turn into copper ions. These are these move into the electrolyte. Let's check. Have we stated how and explained why? Oh, we haven't stated how. Therefore, the mass decreases. Now, 2, let's talk about the copper cathode. Attracts copper ions, where they gain 2 electrons and turn back into copper metal. Therefore, the mass increases. So have we stated how for both? Yes. 1 increases, 1 decreases. Have we explained why? Yes. For 2 copper electrodes? Yes. Right. Now we can put in the 2 half equations. So half equation for 1 is Cu goes to Cu2 plus 2E minus, and for 2 you've got Cu2 plus 2E minus, making copper metal. So you have definitely got more than 3 points there. You have done that question to death. You have definitely got a mark, the 3 marks there. Explain why during electrolysis the colour of the copper sulfate does not change. You can say words to the effect of the colour comes from the copper ions. And then you can say Cu2 plus ions are being replaced at the same rate as they are being used. 2 marks, 2 points, and definitely 1 full mark. Okay, that was question 5. Easy peasy.